This is Chapter 7, Demand and Supply, Discussion Number 4, Equilibrium Point and Government Actions. So what happens if we put a demand curve and a supply curve on the same graph? What we have is the pure answer of economics, because we're going to see where demand and supply cross, and where they equal, where the amount demanded equals the amount supplied at a particular price, is referred to as the equilibrium price. This is the point where we're not going to have any extra, we're not going to have any shortage. This is what the economy needs to work at, and when it achieves this, which it does pretty much on its own, the economy is working efficiently. So, what happens if it doesn't quite hit the equilibrium price? Well, we could have a shortage. We could have a shortage when the price is lower than the equilibrium price. Because if you take a look at our chart and we say, let's pick out a price of $12. So we look for about the 12 on the left-hand vertical axis, and we see that the supply curve, the green curve, is about 10. All right, but at $12, we see that the demand curve is about 50. So 10 produced, 50 wanted, that's a shortage. So how does this get fixed? Well, currently, they said the current conditions that they're only willing to supply 12. But the price could be increased, so more would be produced, less would be demanded, until we get to that point where both of them agree, and poof, we've got the equilibrium price. So simply by changing the price can alter the environment and get us to equilibrium price. We also could have a surplus. And we have a surplus, that would be because the price is higher than the equilibrium price. So let's pick out on this curve approximately $25. We see at $25 that only about 20 are going to be demanded, but at $25 we've got about 45 being supplied. Now, we're going to reduce the price because because we need to sell all of our extra stuff. It's going to come down, and then when we get to the equilibrium price, we'll see that that pretty much matches, and then the economy keeps on going without extra, or with less. So that's how it naturally fixes itself to get to an equilibrium price. Now, if we wanted to affect where the equilibrium price went, then we could shift either of these curves. Remember, we showed you how to change demand. We could do advertising. And advertising, we could increase the price, or we could increase demand. That curve would move all the way over until the point where we had met, where we had moved the equilibrium price because of it. Um, or on the supply side, we found something cheaper, we'd be willing to make more at the particular sale price, and so that would move the supply curve. So that's how we can affect some shortages or surpluses by changing the circumstances, or we can simply just change the price like we had demonstrated here. But let's say that the government gets involved, and the government does get involved in several different ways in order to affect supply and demand for what the government would for a goal that's generally a political reason. So sometimes the government will establish a price floor, which essentially has said that this will be the minimum price that you are allowed to charge for a particular item. All right, good. What happens when we have a price floor? Well, generally demand is going to go down and supply is going to go up until we have the situation as demonstrated on slide number 25, that the demand curve, remember the one with the downslope, is looking at about 20 at $25 and is looking at about $45 being supplied. We're going to have a whole bunch of extra. Now, for the most part, the government stays away from price floors. I mean, they do have it for tobacco, but one thing that they do have it at that you may not realize is milk. And the reason why milk is because because milk has such a short shelf life. And so, in order to make sure that farmers could sell their milk, they would constantly underbid each other to the point that they couldn't survive on it, but they had to sell the milk. And so the government kind of helped the farmers out by saying, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to establish a price floor so that none of you can underbid each other, and so therefore everyone gets the money that they need." That's why there's a price floor. Now, tobacco, it's a whole different idea. They set a price floor because they want to make sure they want to make smoking tobacco so expensive that it will discourage its use. But it's still a price floor when you're speaking economically. Also, the government can set a price ceiling. Now, price ceiling saying that you cannot charge more than this. So, even though equilibrium price would be, say, $18 on the chart on slide 26, well, we could set the equilibrium, we could set the ceiling at 15. And we see that there's about 25 being supplied and there's about 45 uh, being demanded. That's a shortage. And how is this taken care of? Well, price ceilings tend to be popular because people said prices are going too quick. Set a price ceiling so they can't charge us any more than that. Well, that's good on the demand side, but the supply side, everyone's going, why should I work really hard and lose money because I can't make enough money to even cover my costs, or the profit's just not worth it? And so that's how you end up getting a shortage during price ceilings. However, what also happens a lot during price ceiling events is that there's going to be a black market where people are going to sneak in back alleys and make shady deals in order to get the items that they want on a market level instead of following the government's orders and that type of thing. So that's where black markets could come in as people do that. Now, another government intervention would be that of rationing, where the government's power is used to make sure that things get distributed, whether it be a good or a service, but the distribution is not going to be based on price. They're just going to say, you get 5 of these, or you get 10 minutes of this. And so there's no price involved. It's just this is how much you get. So that's another way the government gets involved. And with rationing, we also are running into how much is actually being demanded. And generally, rationing means that they want to decrease demand of the particular item. That's it for discussion number 4, the equilibrium point in government actions. It also concludes Chapter 7, Demand and Supply.